Hello, welcome back everybody. I'm John Person from PersonsPlanet.com, and with me right now, again, is Jeffrey Kennedy from Elliott Wave International. Jeffrey's a specialist in commodities and as it regards to technical analysis. And off camera, we were talking about the different potential setups that we have in the market, which is real interesting because we're at this, I don't want to get, again, political, but this has been a very hot topic market with politics. And we have a situation with the Chinese. We just had an agricultural bill signed with Japan for $55 billion. So there might be some interest and money flow coming into the agricultural sector, especially the grains. So I wanted to ask Jeffrey what his technical work suggested for possibly corn, soybeans, and I got one surprise for you because on the old days at the Chicago Board of Trade, we had this phrase, gentlemen don't trade oats. But you use oats as maybe a harbinger for price directional moves in the grain complex. And so I just wanted to see what your work was suggesting or looks like for soybeans moving forward.
I like the upside in soybeans. Specifically, I'm looking for soybeans to get above easily $10 a bushel and ultimately to about $12 a bushel.
Really?
Now, my forecast for those higher prices in soybeans, that's actually been in place for about a year or two.
Okay.
But it's been kind of like sidetracked a little bit because of the tariffs, of course.
Right.
What you just mentioned. But I think once this situation is currently resolved, I'm looking up. I like $5 corn, I like $7 wheat, and oats, yes, I would like to see those go about a buck higher. Which
is really interesting because we did have, if you're an investor and a trader, you want to have your ear to the ground and you really, hopefully, be paying attention in politics. I was always taught if you want to see where the money's going, see what laws or regulations are going to be passed. So remember back in after the new millennial, we had that big push with ethanol. So anything that had to do with corn and ethanol was a big moneymaker, right? Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, I think a $12 bean price, for those that aren't familiar, currently we're trading around $9.30, $9.40
yes.
in the beans.
Yes.
So every dollar move per contract in soybeans is around $5,000. So you're talking a substantial 25% gain out of soybeans, where I don't want to get really political, but we did have people on the Democratic platform say that soybeans were rotting in the field. Mm-hmm. $12 soybeans is not rotting. That's a pretty stellar price that our American farmers would be getting. Mm-hmm. So if there is any downside to this trade, what is your outlook for the upside, and what would you say is the technical charts? Are soybeans rotting in the field at this point?
Well,
at $9.40 a bushel?
I don't think so. I think the situation I see on the charts...
They're probably not rotting because they have these things they invented back in the Egyptian days called silos, right?
This is true. This is true. Again, I think that the tariff situation right now has really made the grain market, forecasting the grain markets, quite complex, quite frustrating actually.
Okay.
But we've seen a floor basis the charts structurally in soybeans, in corn, and in wheat. For example, the last 3 or 4 years, we seem to find a floor in corn between $3.25 and $3 a bushel. And I think those levels are still going to hold.
Okay.
Now, we might see some weakness as we move into, say, the next 4 to 6 weeks of trading, but beyond that, going into 2020, 2021, I'm liking the upside.
Yeah. It's a strong seasonal time period for the ag, and if we have a solid base here, mm-hmm. and then things improve from demand side, mm-hmm. That's a pretty strong move for corn. $5 corn is a mm-hmm. big number for our American farmers.
Yes.
$12 soybeans, and investors, those watching here, that's a pretty sizable rate of return. At what mm-hmm. point would you say you're wrong, or that we need to watch out for downside?
We get much below $3 a bushel in corn. I would have to reanalyze my forecast or remake my forecast.
All right.
But I will
Fair
say
enough.
this. As far as the higher prices in grains that we just spoke about, $10, $12 a bushel soybeans, corn, 5 or better, wheat, 7. Those advances, they're not going to be sustainable moving forward. I do see those prices. I do see us trading those prices, higher prices moving forward into 2020, even 2021. But beyond that, again, we're in that longer-term secular commodity bear market. So once we see these advances, they're nothing more than bear market rallies, and we're going to see further drift lower across the board.
So short-term play after the beginning of the year, going into the spring, So March we get from the USDA at the end of the quarter, we get planting intentions from the farmers, et cetera, and it's at that point becomes a weather market. So you're expecting upside in corn and beans between the beginning of the year and say end of May?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, for that outlook. And again, Jeffrey Kennedy from Elliott Wave International. Thank you for joining us here at the Las Vegas Traders Expo.
Thank you.